thank you for your works. I'm very, very, they're very powerful, very, very moving, and I also feel myself a little bit speechless because I feel very connected to these works. And there's a lot going on in terms of now and the past. And maybe, I think maybe I'll first ask the audience if there's some questions. I think maybe everyone is a little bit as kind of taking in a lot. I have some maybe, I mean, just to begin, because, with your work, it's such a the project has been going on, and they're actually in the endless history of diseases. I think they're
4 years.
4 years, yeah. But there are many, many films, many videos, and as I understand it, it evolved out of there were, maybe you could tell background of how the work began.
It's began from the 2016. I start to write a script about some my understanding of what I scare or what I don't want to see or what I don't want to be, and also it's about all underground sociality from the Kiev, from the Ukrainian as well, about some stories of madnesses and of creations and of dark sideness and of some hope, but unless it's about my anti-hero's character of that all, to show dark side, to maybe understand or go with closer to some bright and white, not white, like shine and be health with the soul, and start to understand how sociality or your habits make bad stuff, and how you can understand that if you didn't see it. So it's about that.
I think also, can you hear me now? All of the connection, I'm very interested in knowing how the beginning of the war in 14, in a sense, was a form of, was a catalyst, and how it is, I know that some of you know one another, but what happened in terms of your self-understanding as artists as a result of the beginning, of Maidan and the beginning of the war in 14? How did you know one another before then? I know that you don't all know one another, but were networks? Maybe, I don't know who I should address it to. Maybe Nikita. Maybe you could talk about it, because I know that you work a lot in collectives, but I also know. You all do in different ways. How is this? How is it? How did it? What would you say before and after 14 in terms of how you've known one another as artists? Does that make sense? Do you understand what my question is?
Excuse me. Can you repeat again? And
no, I'm just wondering what kinds of ways that how have you been in dialogue with one another? Has there been dialogue with one another, networks that have grown and evolved. You're working independently, but you're also also with Alexei, supporting one another, because as the official art scene is quite unstable, and that you're kind of in many ways creating your own networks, and how, maybe to talk a little bit how that evolved after the first invasion of Crimea and Donbass. Is that maybe two of a...
Yeah, thank you. The things about like local horizontal network, they were so relevant in late 2000s, in 2010s. As for now, we can find examples. It still works on, but Michal, since the very beginning, it was rather about absence of strong institutions and situation when you don't have this material resource for work, and so it was self-organization based on poverty. Actually, lots of things in Ukraine and in Ukrainian art scene could be explained through the very idea of poverty, and actually much talking about national identity and like nation building and so on. I have a feeling that it might be not so super important for those whom just survival, just professional survival and human survival can be a problem. But today's Ukrainian scene is something different than it was like during, let's say, golden age of Ukrainian self-organization. There are a lot of smaller initiatives and bigger institutions. They became like stronger, more visible, even more visible internationally, especially since 2014. Like Ukrainian scene, which was almost isolated for so long time, became more internationally open place. Only like example of self-organization I have relation to now, like during current invasion, it's a working room residence in Ivano-Frankivsk. It was initiated by art manager Alena Karavai, and curator Anna Potemkina, and artist Lesya Khomenko. And actually they invited me like a co-curator. And it's a residence for internally displaced artists. Or for example, there are filmmakers from Mariupol whose houses were just devastated. And this residence gave them a place to live and work, firstly in Ivano-Frankivsk, then in Carpathian Mountains, and also they got some like professional opportunities, some like exhibitions and screenings through which they could raise money. So it's also like rather about survival, professional survival. Let's say if we try to compare this residence to, I know, to Khudrada, to Kmytov project I had relation to in 2019, now it's different. Now some people have no place to work. They left their houses, their homes, and their studios. Some have no place to live because they are from Mariupol or from Lugansk or from Kharkiv. And this residence is, in fact, it's so practical. And yeah, now I return to Kyiv. I am in my studio. Like filmmakers from Mariupol, they found an apartment in Kyiv. So this was like a temporary structure, and it will produce some like exhibitions, some public events. It will accumulate this experience of working during full-scale invasion. But anyhow, it doesn't have this, spirit of emancipatory, horizontal networking, which is so fits for verbal description. Yeah, especially in a space of strong Western institution. So now it's about survival, first of all. Other things go through.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there questions coming from the audience? Christina. Yeah.
Thank you so much to all of you. And this has been fabulous, and I'm so happy to see all of your work. I have lots of questions for all of you, but I'll just stick to one because there are other questions. Dana, I was really interested to see your film with the stop motion, and it was obviously very intense to see, even without sound. I would love to hear what your plans are for sound. You said something very interesting. You said that if you were to remake it now, you would do it differently because of the most recent full-scale invasion. And I wanted to hear more about that. I mean, as I understood it, you were saying that when you made that film, you were also partly critical of the Ukrainian role in the Holocaust, but that you would reconfigure it now. I'm just curious. I wanted to hear you say more about that, if you would do that. Thank you.
Back then when I started doing this film, I was working with the local context, and I was addressing Ukrainians and Ukraine. And this was an attempt to remind, and actually I was addressing Ukrainians as a multiplicity and not a totality. And now there is no multiplicity. We are a total produced by this war, and we are as united as never before. And also, I feel that this available spaces where the conversation about history could be held before, they collapsed. A kind of implosion happened, implosion inside itself. And this was the thing that Nikita mentioned as well. The time now for most of Ukrainians, as well as for Ukrainian artists that stayed there, it is a kind of an ever modernity. There is no space for history. We do not have this access anymore, and most of people are dealing with survival and the very, very simple things. Everything seems simplified. And I remember this powerful little text written by a great Ukrainian artist, Katerina Lisvenko. She wrote that the war is like childbirth for her, and that since you are in the process, you cannot stop it, and you give away the control over it. And I think that most of us are feeling pretty the same. It's like we could have worked with that before, and we, of course, obviously will work a lot with it after. But inside this process, I do not feel any space to even go on with the project I talked about. So I think that this work will be very much delayed, maybe in years, because now I think that maybe most of the artists, at least, feel pinned or nailed to this catastrophe that is going on right now. And I don't know where this access to the history or the universal something like Holocaust, when this door will open again, and when this ear would fill this vacuum in order to deal with controversies of the past. And that is why the most that I can do in relation to this project is rethink the last part about Donbass, which seem to really grow right now. And other things like the Bosnian, Chechen, and the Lviv part I will think of them when the war will be over. And right now, delivering the message of Ukrainians taking part in the processes of terror is, there will be time of this kind of conversation as well, but not in the time when it overlaps very well with the Russian propaganda. And this histories they fade very much in the comparison of the role the Ukrainians played in the struggle against fascism. And when there will be time to work with this remindings and with this controversies, with the time to seize your own responsibility, it will come as well. There is nothing that we can exclude from the history, but I think that the temporality differs very much, as well as the demand of time. And now I feel that this demand of time lies in completely different point and space. And I also am still not sure how I'm going to do art. I'm still doing, I didn't do a single thing since the outbreak of the full-scale war. I didn't touch anything I produced in the sense of art. And what I also forgot to say, I'm sorry, that the only thing that stayed from all this project for me now is the kind of understanding that the Ukrainian rage is international. And I'm feeling like all the things I worked with before are coming together in a kind of international of the outraged ones.
My inability to work with this microphone. I'm thinking of Antigona, and you, Maria, both are working so much with the embodied, I mean, the female body and violence in the female body, and very much that in that sense, you know, there isn't a kind of back and forth in terms of references to history. It's very much in the intensity of now and a past that continues, and in some sense there's a risk that you're taking, both of you, in the courage that you have in the work that you're making, and you know the sense of that this is an urgency that's going on now, that this work is very much, there's a presence in it, and I wonder about how that, can you work now? Are you, I mean, as Dana, you're working with history and now, but are you also experiencing this sense of that's you need this to stop, or how do you deal with this kind of care, self-care in this context? I don't know if either, I don't know, I'll open this to who would like to answer it, but yeah, that there's so, it's, yeah, how do you, are you also taking breaks like Dana is saying, or how is it that you're coping?
All the time I feel just a hate. I feel dead. I feel distractions. I feel empties. I feel down. I feel sadness. All the time I feel guilty because now I'm in Paris and I have all my opportunities, what was very important for me in the past, and now I have it, but I'm not happy with that at all. Unfortunately, I can't be like was before. I all the time feel hate, all the time I'm angry, all the time I can't concentration for one simple things. I can't editing, I can't acting, I can't even go through the normal life. All the time I feel sadness, and all the time my mood can be like very huge and very down, and I can't create nothing. So I very also very hate this all because I can't do what I must to do. But in the old time, I not feel expiration because everything's now without the some idea, without the some point, without the some fighting for something. Because how it can be if you see this woman, this man, these little children, little lives, what in the down of the air, and you can't be like, oh, I will show it like, I don't know, Alexei said right, we must to have some point from through, and I very hope to make a performing in the Poland, in the Warsaw, and it will be my first some real work. I hope very much of that because I feel all day it's die, 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 and I very sad about that.
Yeah, no, I don't feel even angry. I'm so empty, totally empty. It's like I don't have even soul, I think, sometimes. Just because of my daughter, that's why I feel alive. Otherwise, I would not survive, really. But I continue working. I have to keep going, and but I don't create anything new. I made a reenact of 254 in Berlin for 2 weeks, and I was doing this performance routine every day, 3 times a day. Yeah, I don't know. It was good that I did it. Kind of send me back to the kind of reality. But also I feel extreme stress. I mean, I am super stressful now because instead of being mom, I'm traveling all the time, and it's exhausting. But I have to say that I'm happy that I'm alive and my baby alive.
I wanted to add that you said about taking a break. I am also not sure I'm taking a break. It wasn't a break that I chose to do and stop doing art. It is impossible. And I think I'm surprised right now because of this shared feeling of total emptiness and being an object. It's like I also lost access to all the meanings I had before. It's not about taking a break.
I understood that. What I meant was about the sense of the power of the work that you're all doing, and how you cope with that. And so I think also the fact that it's, there is incredible beauty and power in all of your work, and that it's there is just incredibly important. So thank you for that. Yeah, I think we'll end with this. Thank you all. Oh, yeah. Nikita, do you want to? You look like you want to say a last thing, or no?
Oh, I'm just looking like that.
Okay. Yeah. I thank everyone for coming. It's been a very, very intense day, and I think sometimes we can't have happy endings because this is not a happy moment. But the work that you're doing is really very, very important, and I honor you all. Thank you.